Enjoy our spine-chilling stories as you sleep, commute, or relax. If you're new, hit subscribe and share with friends and family. Let us know in the comments how we can improve. Our stories are best experienced with headphones on. Now, let's dive into today's tale.
Warning: the following stories contain elements of horror that explore themes of the supernatural, possession, psychological terror, and gruesome transformations. They are intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for those sensitive to graphic imagery or themes of death, entrapment, and eternal damnation. Listener discretion is advised. Story number 4. Mother's Sinister Transformation. The summer of 2003 stretched lazily over our small suburban town, the sun casting long shadows across our front yard. I woke up one afternoon, the world still cloaked in the remnants of a deep, dreamless sleep. My 4-year-old brother, Ethan, was bouncing on my bed like a rubber ball, his tiny hands tugging at my blanket. Wake up, he squealed, his voice high-pitched and relentless. I'm hungry, I groaned, my body heavy with the weight of an unusually long nap. Ethan, why are you awake? It's the middle of the afternoon. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. Mom went to Grandma's, he proclaimed, his excitement blissfully oblivious to my exhaustion. The mention of my mother sent a pang of frustration through me. She had left to visit Grandma, who had just undergone surgery, leaving me in charge. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my feet meeting the cool hardwood floor. With a resigned sigh, I pushed myself up, knowing I couldn't leave Ethan hungry. I shuffled into the kitchen, the scent of something odd lingering in the air. My mother had a knack for preparing meals in advance, so I expected to be greeted by a neatly arranged bottle of baby formula and some snacks. But as I entered, I found her standing at the counter. She was there, a whirlwind of energy, her back to me as she hurriedly worked. Bottles clanked together, and the faint sound of splashing milk filled the room. Mom, I ventured, my voice cautious. She turned slowly, and my heart dropped. Her face was twisted in a way that felt all wrong, angles sharp and exaggerated, as if someone had taken a sculptor's knife to her features. What do you want? She snapped, her voice low and taut. I just thought I'd help you with Ethan. I stammered, a knot forming in my stomach. Help? She repeated, incredulous. You're supposed to be taking care of him. Why aren't you doing your job? Her eyes glinted, dark and vacant, sending chills down my spine. The way she stirred the formula was frantic, almost violent, milk splattering over the counter. I felt my pulse quicken. When did you get back? Does it matter? She hissed, her gaze unblinking, fixated on me like a predator sizing up its prey. I could feel the tension thick in the air, the kind that suffocates. I just thought I could. Stop talking, she interrupted, the words like a whip crack. I watched, frozen, as she leaned closer, her face distorting further under the harsh kitchen lights. My breath hitched as I tried to comprehend what was happening. The shapes of her features began to blur together, and I wondered if I had woken up in some twisted nightmare. Mom, please. My voice trembled as I reached for Ethan, who was peeking around a corner, oblivious to the storm brewing in the kitchen. I scooped him up, feeling the warmth of his small body against mine. Mommy's just busy, I called back, trying to sound cheerful, but the quiver in my voice betrayed me. We'll just go play outside until you're done, "Get back here," she barked, and the authority in her voice made my heart race. This was not the mother I knew. This was something else. With Ethan clutched tightly in my arms, I dashed out of the kitchen, my feet pounding against the wooden floor, and burst through the front door. The summer sun hit me like a slap, and I stumbled onto the grass, gasping for air. "Where are we going?" Ethan squealed, his innocent curiosity cutting through my panic. Just to the neighbors," I managed to say, hurrying across the yard to the rented unit where the Johnsons lived. Mrs. Johnson was always warm and inviting, her laughter a soothing balm against the chaos that often enveloped our home. "Mrs. Johnson," I called, my voice strained as I knocked on the door. She opened it, her expression shifting from surprise to concern as she took in my frantic state. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Can we stay with you for a little while?" "Mom's." "She's busy," I stuttered, desperately trying to sound casual. "Of course, dear. Come in, come in." She ushered us inside, her presence a comfort as I left the chaos of our home behind. I called my mother from their landline, my fingers trembling as I punched in the numbers. The phone rang, each tone echoing my rising anxiety. When she answered, her voice was tight, sharp enough to cut. "Why aren't you home?" "Ethan was hungry, and I didn't know when you'd be back," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought it would be better to wait here." "You should have taken care of him. You're so irresponsible." The words felt like a slap, and I winced. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my stomach twisting. "Just get home," she snapped and hung up, leaving a cold emptiness in her wake. Hours passed, the sun dipping lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room as I sat with Ethan, trying to distract him with games and stories. But the sense of dread lingered, gnawing at my insides. "Where's Mommy?" he asked, his little voice innocent and trusting. "She's coming back soon," I assured him, though doubt crept into my mind. What if she hadn't returned? What if she was still in that kitchen, her face twisted and unnatural? Finally, the clock struck 6, and I heard the familiar sound of our front door creaking open. My heart raced as I exchanged glances with Mrs. Johnson, who stood just outside the living room, concern etched on her face. "Should I go check?" she whispered, her eyes darting toward the hallway. "I'll go," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I stepped out of the living room. Each step toward the kitchen felt like a leap into the unknown, the air thick with apprehension. As I entered, I found her standing there, her back to me once again. The kitchen was a disaster, milk spilled everywhere, the counter cluttered with disarray. "Mom," I called, my voice shaky. She turned slowly, and my heart sank. The familiar features of my mother were gone, replaced by something grotesque. Her eyes appeared too large, her mouth a gaping maw filled with teeth too sharp and too many. "What have you done?" she growled, her voice low and menacing. I didn't mean to," I stammered, fear curling around my spine. "Did you think you could just leave? Ethan was hungry." "Stop making excuses," she screeched, the sound echoing through the house like a banshee's wail. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as I fought against the urge to scream. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to help." "Help," she spat, her face twisting in rage. "You're useless. I've done everything for you." I could feel the walls closing in, the room spinning, as I realized this wasn't my mother anymore. Whatever stood before me was a twisted reflection of her, an echo of the anger she had directed at me my entire life. "Mom, please," I cried, but my words fell on deaf ears. In a moment of sheer instinct, I turned and ran. I bolted out of the kitchen, down the hallway, and out the front door, my heart pounding in my ears. Behind me, I could hear her shriek, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "Don't you dare run away from me." I didn't stop. I dashed across the yard, the grass slick beneath my feet. I could hear her footsteps pounding behind me, echoing like a drum beat in my chest. "Ethan!" I yelled, panic rising in my throat. I rushed toward the Johnsons' door, banging on it with desperation. "Let us in!" Mrs. Johnson opened the door, her eyes wide with confusion. "What's going on?" "Please let us in," I begged, pushing past her and dragging Ethan behind me. "Get in!" I shouted, and she stepped back, shock giving way to concern. I slammed the door shut, leaning against it, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "What's happening?" Mrs. Johnson asked, her voice trembling. In that moment, I could hear her, my mother, banging on the door, her furious voice echoing through the house. "You can't hide from me." "Call the police," I urged, my heart racing. "What?" "Please." But as I looked into Mrs. Johnson's eyes, I knew it wouldn't help. Whatever had taken my mother was beyond the help of the law. It was an insatiable darkness that hungered for me. The banging intensified, and I pressed my back against the door, the reality of my situation crashing down on me. This was my life, living in fear of a woman who once loved me, now twisted by something I couldn't understand. "Ethan, stay close," I murmured, wrapping my arms around him. "Is Mommy coming?" he asked, eyes wide with innocence, and my heart broke. "I don't know, buddy. I don't know." As we huddled together, the weight of the situation bore down on me. I had grown up with a narcissistic mother, always walking on eggshells, forever seeking her approval. But now I was losing her to something far worse, a darkness that consumed not just her, but everything it touched. The door shook, and I could hear my mother's voice, low and haunting. "You can't escape me, you know." Tears filled my eyes as I realized the truth. I was trapped, and so was Ethan. I had spent so many years trying to understand her, trying to forgive her for the past. But now, in this horror, I saw it clearly. Her anger, her neglect. It wasn't just a product of her upbringing. It was a cycle, a curse that was now passing to me. "Mommy, please," Ethan called, his voice breaking, and my heart shattered. "Stay quiet," I whispered, urgently, clenching my fists. The door rattled again, and I braced myself for the worst. The fear surged within me, but alongside it was a flicker of resolve. I wouldn't let this darkness take us. "Ethan, listen to me," I said, my voice steadying. "We're going to find a way out of this. Will Mommy be okay?" "Maybe," I lied, but I felt a fire ignite in my chest. I had to protect him. I had to break this cycle. As the door threatened to give way under her relentless assault, I searched the room for anything I could use. "We need to find a way to stop her," I said, my mind racing. "Like what?" Ethan asked, his face pale. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but we can't just sit here." The door splintered, and I felt the panic rise again, but I pushed it down. "We're going to fight back," I declared, a fierce determination coursing through me. "Fight, Mommy?" he asked, confusion knitting his brow. "Not her. The darkness that's taken her. We're going to break free." Together, we moved toward the kitchen, the noise of the door crashing behind us, echoing like thunder. I could feel the heat of something dark and angry pressing against my back, but I wouldn't let it consume me. In that moment, I understood. This was not just about me or my mother. It was about breaking a cycle that had haunted our family for generations. "Ethan, hold my hand," I instructed, and he nodded, his little fingers wrapping around mine. As we stepped into the kitchen, I faced the twisted figure of my mother, her eyes wild and hungry. "You think you can escape me?" "No," I shouted, my voice ringing clear. "You don't control us anymore." The air crackled with tension as I stood my ground, my heart racing, but my resolve firm. "We're not afraid of you." Her face contorted in rage, but I could see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "You will regret this." "We've already regretted enough," I retorted, feeling the strength of my words. Ethan squeezed my hand, his small gesture grounding me. And in that moment, I realized that I had the power to change our fate. "You're not my mother anymore," I declared, and the words reverberated through the room. The air shifted, and I could sense the darkness quivering as if my declaration had struck a nerve. "Leave us alone," I shouted, my voice a rallying cry. With each word, I felt my heart swell with courage, the shadows retreating in the face of my defiance. My mother's form flickered, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman I had loved, vulnerable and scared. "Help me," she whispered, a plea that shattered my heart. "Mom!" I cried, reaching out. But as I moved closer, the darkness surged back, twisting her features into something monstrous. "You can't save me." "Yes, I can," I insisted, my voice strong. "You're not lost. You just need to fight back." "Fight?" She laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "I understand more than you think," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm not just your daughter. I'm stronger than you know, and I won't let you take us down with you." The shadows around her flickered, as if caught in the balance between light and dark. I could feel it, the power of love, of family, struggling against the weight of despair. "Ethan, repeat after me," I said, turning to him. "We are strong. We are loved. We will not be consumed." "Mommy, you can come back," Ethan shouted, his voice ringing with innocence and hope. As we spoke those words, I felt the room vibrate, the darkness pushing against us. But our light was stronger. With each repetition, my mother's form began to shift, the grotesque features fading as the woman I knew began to emerge. "Help me," she croaked, her voice breaking. I stepped forward, holding out my hand. "We're here for you. Just fight back." Tears streamed down her face, the shadows retreating as she reached for me. I don't want to be this anymore." "Then don't be," I cried, and together we took a step toward the light. In that moment, the darkness shattered, dissipating like smoke in the wind. The kitchen brightened, and my mother fell to her knees, her face crumpling in sorrow. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, collapsing against the counter. I rushed to her side, pulling her into an embrace as Ethan hugged her tightly. "It's okay, Mom. We're going to get through this together." And in that moment, I felt the weight of the past lift, the cycle breaking, as we stood united against the darkness that had threatened to consume us. The summer sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting warmth over us as we held on to each other, a family bound not by fear but by love, a love that would heal the wounds of the past and guide us toward the light. Together we would face whatever came next. Together we would fight.
If you're new, hit subscribe and share with friends and family. Let us know in the comments how we can improve.